Thanks for staying with us. You're watching What Now? We'll turn our attention to Europe, where European Union countries have agreed to ban the importation of Russian gas towards the end of 2027. Under the agreement, the EU will halt Russian liquefied natural gas imports by the end of 2026 and pipeline gas by the 30th of September 2027. This decision makes the EU leaders' decision to cut ties with their former top supplier of gas legally binding. It comes nearly 4 years after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Ministers from EU countries approved the decision at a meeting in Brussels, but Slovakia and Hungary voted against it, and Bulgaria abstained. Hungary and Slovakia are heavily dependent on Russian energy imports. It is the reason why they want to maintain close ties with Moscow. Hungary has already made it known that it will challenge the new law at the European Court of Justice. And for more on this development, the Executive Chairman of the 16th Council UK, Dr. Brian Rubin, joins me from the UK. Good to have you join us, Dr. Brian.
Thank you so much, Precious. Thank you for having me.
So one of the reasons for this decision, again, a lot of countries, even President Trump had pushed for it just when he came into office. And one of the reasons for this decision is to cut the source of Russia's funding or finance. And it is coming nearly 4 years after Moscow's full invasion of Ukraine. What impact will this have now that peace talks are on?
Thank you very much for having me. This is a very important development since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Russia. And this decision is significant because it turns a political intention into a legally binding economic weapon. By cutting off Russian LNG by 2026 and pipeline gas by 2027, the EU is deliberately shrinking one of Russia's most reliable sources of foreign currency. And that matters because LNG revenues have been central to funding Russia's war effort and stabilizing its economy under sanctions. So now this won't stop the war overnight. Let's get it straight. It's not about switching something on and off. Russia can still sell LNG to Asia, but it does so at heavy discounts and on less favorable terms. So over time, that reduces Moscow's fiscal space. Becomes harder to fund a prolonged war while also keeping the domestic economy stable. So for Europe, the cost is real, but manageable. The phased timeline allows countries to adjust, diversify suppliers, and invest in alternatives. So politically, it's also sending a very strong signal. Europe is willing to pay a price to reduce strategic dependence on a hostile power. So the real impact here is going to be long-term. This decision clearly weakens Russia's leverage and tightens its war finance.
Dr. Brian, I don't want to miss the point you made. Apologies for interjecting, but I don't want to miss the point you made about sending strong signals to Russia, because I'm wondering how strong that signal is. Slovakia and Hungary voted against it, and then Bulgaria abstained. Hungary said it would challenge it, the law at the European Court of Justice. Does this not sort of further expose the deep fractures within the EU?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a very good question, and it does expose differences within the EU, but it does not weaken the signal to Russia. In fact, it clarifies it. The important point is this: despite objections from Slovakia and I think Hungary, and the abstention of another country, I think as Bulgaria or something, the decision still passed and is now legally binding. Now that tells Moscow that Europe may debate eternally, but it ultimately acts collectively when core security interests are at stake. So Hungary's challenge at the European Court of Justice is more about domestic politics than overturning the policy. All right, so legal challenges take time, and they don't suspend the law in the meantime. So from Russia's perspective, the market is still closing. Contracts are still expiring, and investment decisions are already shifting away from Russian gas. Every major EU decision shows eternal disagreement. I mean, that's the nature of the Union of 27 states. I mean, total of 27 states here. What matters strategically is the outcome, not the unanimity of it. And that outcome is clear. Europe has decided that energy dependence on Russia is no longer acceptable. If that choice comes with a political and economic, cost, that wouldn't matter. They still go ahead with that.
Now, as the bloc accelerates its pivot away from Russian fossil fuels, and then with court battles also looming, I'm wondering what's at stake for Europe's energy future, and then just the unity of the bloc, as we see a little bit of fracture here and there, in the bloc.
Thank you. Again, that's a very important question, and it's big, really. Because you see, the stakes are very high on both fronts. On energy, Europe is effectively redesigning its entire energy model in real time, moving away from Russia fossil fuel means higher short-term costs, and heavy investments in LNG infrastructure, renewables, storage, and interconnections. But the payoff is long-term resilience. Europe becomes less exposed to geopolitical blackmail and supply shocks. So on unity, yes, there are visible fractures. Some countries feel the economic pain more than others, and that creates political tension. But this is where the EU's real test lies. Historically, Europe has held together, not necessarily because everyone agrees, but because it creates mechanisms to share the burden through subsidies, through solidarity funds, and even FaceTime lines. So, in fact, this transition could strengthen unity if managed properly. And I'll tell you why. When energy security is treated as a collective security, countries have a stronger incentive to cooperate rather than just go do it alone.
All right.
So the choice for Europe is clear. Either absorb some discomfort now and emerge more independent and united, or cling to old dependencies, and that leaves the bloc strategically vulnerable.
Well, we're following developments as always in Europe. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Brian Ruben, Executive Chairman, 16th Council, UK.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Meanwhile,